Welcome back to the channel, folks. Once again, my name is Josh, and today we're actually going to be working on my own JK. There was something that had always been bothering me about this Jeep, and we're going to fix it. And I'm going to show you some really cool, inexpensive products that are on the market to solve the problem that we have. So today we're going to be talking about oversized tires and tire carriers. So stick around, because this may just turn in to be a pretty fun video. All right, and once again, welcome back to the channel, folks. So as you can see on the back of my Jeep, she's a little bit naked right now. Well, what I did have back here, for those of you that remember, is I had the Smitty built Atlas rear bumper. Now that bumper was specifically on here to hold the weight of the Gobi Safari rack that was on top of the Jeep that was carrying all my overland gear. However, over time, and when I mean say time, I say over the course of about 6 years or so, she started to sag a little bit. And I don't know if you noticed, but the tire was kind of hanging down off the back. It had a hard time staying level when I was pulling a trailer. And because of the way the weight of that bumper back there, in addition to the weight of all the gear that I had up top, this thing was sitting so low, it was practically riding on the bump stops in the back. So I want to keep the 37-inch tire, but I can't use the door. I looked at all kinds of different options for rear bumpers and tire carriers. And you know what? I wasn't really impressed by what was on the market and available, at least in the price range I wanted to spend this time on the JK. So we kind of came up with something a little different. I did some research and I found something that I think may actually benefit a lot of you guys, especially if you're going to go larger than stock tire and think honestly that you want to hang it on your door. So first, let me talk about why we can't do that, and then I'm going to show you what we did to solve that problem. So the door on the back of the JK, the JL, the TJ, YJ, I don't actually care which Jeep we're talking about. The door on the back is pretty much just for access. Okay, that's it. It's there to protect the stuff that's inside of your cargo. Now, Jeep does hang their spare tire off the door based on the size of the hinges that are back here and the thickness of this door and the weight that they think that it can carry. A stock tire really isn't going to hurt it. But we know that when you go larger in your tires, 33s, 35s, 37s, 38s, 40s, the bigger you get, the heavier that tire gets, not to mention the size. So if you take this thin piece of sheet metal here that is connected to the back of the Jeep by just these two little factory points, and you put the weight of a 37, 38, or 40-inch tire, which we're talking well over 100 pounds, then over time, this thing's going to start sagging this way. You're not going to be able to shut it. On top of that, even with the support on this side and this thing latched in place, this thin piece of sheet metal, not my guard that I have here, but this thin piece of sheet metal can't handle the impact this way. So the tire's constantly pulling on it. And there have been instances where it's actually ripped the sheet metal right off the back. So if you're like me and decided you wanted to simplify things and you don't want a massive, heavy 800-pound steel bumper with a huge swing arm tire carrier, but you still want to carry your spare, let me show you what I found. And I know a lot of you are already familiar with this. I'm going to show you what I found and show you how to install it. All right, folks. So this kit right here is offered by multiple different brands that are on the market. I happened to pick this one up off of Amazon. I'm a huge fan of Amazon simply because I live outside of the major cities. So picking up stuff can be difficult, and it's nice to just have them quickly next day deliver everything to my house. But anyways, the idea here is this guy is the primary tire carrier. This is extremely heavy-duty aluminum, and the idea is to replace the hinges and the hardware and everything on the setup on the door for something that can actually handle the weight, stress, and impact of an oversized, overweight tire. So it's a relatively simple kit. You've got your bracing for the door. You've got the pieces for your tire carrier, all your hardware, everything comes with it. It should be relatively simple and easy to install. And basically, it's going to put the tire back on the door, but it's going to keep it up out of the way. It's going to make it so I don't have to open two separate things at the same time when I go to open the back of the Jeep to get there for cargo. And I think it's going to slim things down and save me in the long run a lot of weight on the Jeep, which could improve fuel economy, performance, and all kinds of other issues that comes with overloading and weighing down your Jeep. First things first, you got to get all the plastic pieces off the back and get it all cleaned up. Now, if you're anything like me, you are going to find all kinds of dirt. Man, this thing needs a bath. So now is actually the great opportunity to go through and clean everything before we put the new parts on. There. I mean, it's not perfect. I definitely got to get it outside, use a pressure washer, but definitely looks a whole lot better than it did, right? So we're going to go through the actual install of this step by step, and I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video that the reason why is we all know that the off-name brand products that you pick up on Amazon, usually the instructions either suck or they're missing. So in today's case, there are no instructions for this. So if you decide to pick up the same kit, which is inexpensive and heavy duty, but you want to know how to install it, well, let's dive right in and let's do this step by step. So first things first, we've got factory hinges. These are actually going to have to come off this door. All right. And then we are going to replace them with the new unit. These bolts here are the same 13 millimeter bolts that you pull off of the original tire carrier if you have it, or any plate that you have back here. These ones that connect the hinges to the actual body, you are going to need a T50 Torx bit. And it looks like that. Okay. You don't want to use anything but a T50 Torx bit because they're in there extremely tight, as it does hold a lot of weight and you don't want to strip them out. But it actually does make it pretty easy. Just like that. And then the hinges come right off. All right, so to put the new piece on, it is going to be handy to have two guys. First, we're going to start with attaching it to the frame so we make sure that we get it level. The door, which you don't want to touch at this point, is kind of just set in place, but we might need to pull it up or down in order to level it in onto the piece that we're installing. So let's get it attached to the frame first. So you're going to want to go this way, like that. And even though they do provide hardware, using the factory bolts is a much cleaner fit and fitment. Now, of course, the factory bolts, when they were in there, were painted into place. This thing's got 150,000 miles on it. It's 11 years old. It never came loose. But now that we've disturbed them, after a couple of miles of driving with the weight of the tire on here, you're going to want to come back and double check these bolts. So now that we've got the main hardware on the door, we got to build the tire carrier. So the suggestion is to take this and actually put it up into place to kind of get an idea of where the height of your tire needs to be. Once you figure that out, then we actually need to attach it and tighten it down. So the hardware that they provide for you semi-matches pretty much everything that's going on the Jeep. It's going to be an Allen head. And this particular one is a 6 millimeter. So you're going to need a 6 millimeter Allen head wrench. it does not come with an Allen head wrench. So hopefully you have one. And then you're gonna need a 15 millimeter socket for the other side. So we're just gonna tighten this down one by one. And don't be afraid to put some serious muscle into it, because remember, this is going to be holding the weight of your oversized tire, and you don't want this to rattle loose. And if your wife's anything like my wife, make a bunch of noise going down the trail. Now, once you get that into place, you don't have to worry about assembling the rest of the spare tire mount for right now. This is what you need to be able to get up behind. Now we can put this on the Jeep and start getting everything lined up. All right, so for this piece here, I just wanted to touch base. We use the factory bolts because of the fit and finish, if you look, of how clean that is in there. The hardware that they provided in order to attach this to the door, it isn't necessarily bad hardware, but in my opinion, it seems really, really cheap. So I chose to use the factory bolts that originally held this thing for the last 160,000 miles and install it that way. I think that's the better way to go. So this guy here is going to go over the outside on this side. But before you go and attach everything down, you'll notice that it makes a gap over here. That gap, they do provide you with little spacers to fill that gap so that it kind of matches the depth of this, and this can stay level on the back of the Jeep. So once again, the 13 millimeter bolts that came off of the original plate and or tire carrier, whatever you have on the back here, is still going to be my recommendation for attaching this to the outside of this plate. Now, you don't necessarily want to go and run everything down at this point, although it is pretty much set in place and the rest of it can be built outside. But if you're anything like me, you've either got a CB antenna cable, a third brake light cable, and or a ham radio cable that is buried inside this door. So since that's up in this hole behind this guy, we need to figure out where we're going to mount those things before we actually bury the wires and make it, that's much harder to get to. So give me a few minutes. Let me do some layout and see what we're going to do. So on the spare tire mount that is going to go on the outside of this, in order to mount your tire to it, you actually have to install the studs. Now, the reason that they don't do that for you is because there are multiple different options for bolt patterns depending upon the size, rim, axle, or bolt pattern that you're running on yours. So make sure you get this lined up to your bolt pattern before you go and set these, okay? But I'm going to show you the easiest way to do it is you just take the stud, slide it in from the back, okay? The safest way is get yourself a series of washers just so that you can put even pressure and then an open-ended lug nut. And we're going to screw the lug nut on until it's nice and snug. And then with an impact gun, you just run it until this becomes actual flat with the thing. So are you ready? Whoops. Helps if we go forward. Just like that. And then back it off. And since that's all it takes, then that is now perfectly set and strong enough to hold the weight of the tire. So now we've got the tire carrier mounted and we've got the brace for the actual spare tire itself. And this is on there extremely rugged. You can see it's shaking the entire Jeep and designed to hold the weight of that tire. Now you could stop right here and say, great, I'm done. Throw the tire on and hit the road. But there are a couple of other accessories to keep in mind. One, if you want to keep your third brake light, it does have a bracket to mount to the back for your third brake light over your spare tire. I don't use that, so I'm not mounting that. But in my case, I am mounting my ham radio antenna back here. So what we did was we drilled a hole on the back of the mount so that we could put the antenna right there in the center, which will sit right behind the spare tire. Now, for those of you who are doing this on a JL, you do have a backup camera. For those of you who are doing it on the JK and you want a backup camera, this is the perfect time before you start installing stuff to look at installing your aftermarket backup camera. Now, in my last tire carrier, I had this guy set basically right in here, but the spacing on this one is a little different. If I mount this the same way, this camera is going to be tucked so far behind the wheel that it's going to be almost completely useless as a backup camera. So what we're doing is we're taking a piece of square tubing and we are actually going to mount it right through the holes that are already provided right here. And we're going to fabricate a mount right in the center of the hub for the camera to go right here. Then we'll paint it and we'll get it to match what we got going on. If you are going to put this on or reinstall it, you want to consider this before you lift that 150-pound tire up here, right? Right. So, but anyway, so we're going to fabricate this and I'll show you the finished product as soon as we're done. Now, you got the backup camera put in place. We've got the antenna set. We've got this set. Everything is tightened down, ready to go. Door has remained level. I think we're good to put the 37 up there. Now, it is a heavy tire, and there's a lot of people out there that are like, dude, I need some help. I need a buddy. I need my friends to come over and help me lift this because it's awkward and it's heavy. I'm going to show you, just like I have on previous videos, the easiest way to lift up a 150-pound rim and tire up above your chest height all by yourself. So we're going to have the tire leaning up against us. Grab the inside of the rim and then just use your back and flip it up. Just like so. Then, because it is going to lean, make sure you are within reach of your lug nuts for at least one of them so that you can put a lug nut on and hold it right in place. There we go. So now the spare tire is back up on the Jeep and I'm free to put a little stubby bumper or something down there I can use to tow with, and I don't have to worry about two separate ways to open this up because it's attached right to the door. And because of the strength on the hinges themselves, the door isn't going to lean and it'll hold the weight of the tire just fine. So nice and simple, right? There you have it. This whole unit to hold the weight of this tire was a fraction of the price of what you would expect it to be. And there is going to be a link down in the description below this video if you want to check it out. And if you have any questions whatsoever about the install itself or anything that we did in order to get this thing perfect for the vehicle, then don't hesitate. Put it in the comments down below this video. In the meantime, folks, once again, my name is Josh. This is currently Jeeping for Beginners, and wishing you happy Jeeping. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Believe it or not, there's absolutely zero directions that come with this. Fortunately, it's fairly intuitive, but that's one of the reasons why I decided to make a video.